Happy New Year, everyone. Happy New Year. So just like my house, you know, the tree is down and the lights are gone and everything just is back to normal, right? We're in a new year, 2020. Does everything feel new to you? Let's keep it real, folks. Right? Let's keep it real. So last week, though, we gathered together, right? We came together as community, and we decided what it was we needed to release and let go of, and we placed those into the burning flame, right? The burning bowl. And then your task this past week was to make sure not to pick those things back up again. So did you practice it?
Yes.
Yeah? So I want to give you the opportunity, if there's somebody out there that practiced it and realized somewhere during the week, oh my gosh, I picked it back up again. What was that experience like for you? So is there anybody who would like to share today? Nobody picked it up. Oh, Jessica. All right. So Jessica, did you pick it back up?
Certainly did.
All right, tell us your experience of that.
New Year's Eve, I took an emergency phone call. Not sure if I had to, felt like I did. But taking on that phone call and 2 commitments to 2 parties, I ended up with a migraine the following day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What did it remind you of?
The migraine?
No, the experience. You picked it all back up again.
I think it's pattern and process, so I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
I'm forgiving, so I
Yes.
just took care of myself the next day.
And there it was, forgiveness, right? It is a pattern. We are all in these habitual patterns. It's the way our brains are designed, right? Neural connections happen. They're like wearing grooves in a record. We fall into those habits and patterns. Here I am, I've picked up that unworthiness again. And rather than going, oh, how awful of you to pick up that unworthiness again, which isn't very helpful, to simply recognize it for what it is. So yes, thank you, Jessica. Anybody else? Yeah, Greg.
It was less an issue of picking something back up that I had released, and more of realizing that I had never released it in the first place.
Aha! That's honest.
Right, and it was regret for goals not accomplished in 2019.
Ah.
And setting the same goal again and hoping it turns out differently this year. So it wasn't a picking back up, it was a realizing that I hadn't ever released it. And working on that.
Yeah, that's a good insight right there, right? I mean, what does it mean to just let it go? And have I really done that? Okay, one more. I see Sandy back here. Welcome back, Sandy. It's so good to see you. Hold it close so we can all hear.
For me, recovering the last few weeks, having so much time on my hands, being very aware of my thoughts, having to just being aware and stopping and looking at it and letting it go over and over again. But it was just amazing how often I repeat them.
Yeah.
And not beating myself up, just letting it go and going back to the clean slate.
Exactly. How often do we have an opportunity to start a new year? Every moment. Every moment a new year is beginning, right? There's no need to wait till New Year's Eve or next burning bowl to burn it again, to let it go. It's a daily practice, moment by moment. So, but we are moving on to our next new year, our next new series. Our overarching theme last year was One Humanity, Many Stories. This year, Unity has set the overarching theme on perfect vision, seeing through a spiritual lens. I have a feeling 2020 kind of, wove into their theme. All right. More groans? Right. Okay, so here we are. 2020, we're going to have perfect vision. We're going to see through a spiritual lens. And so as we decided, well, what should that look like? How do we begin this? The idea was, well, let's go back to the beginning. Who are we? And by who are we, what I'm wanting to talk about is who are we as unity? Who are we as these unity teachings and these unity ideas? And how can those things support us in seeing life from a spiritual perspective, right? So we're starting small today because our conversation is on God. Boy, I'm off or you're off or something's happening here. Now, I want to invite, if there are children here that would like to come up and join me for a conversation, we're going to talk God, and I'd love to have you come join me up on the stage, so I'm just going to make that invitation to them. If you come on up, Kylie, absolutely, come on up. Sit up on the steps here, and we're going to come back to you in a moment. I'm going to start out here. I want you to be thinking about, as the children are coming forward here, how you would finish the statement, God is, and I'm not asking you to do so first because I'm going to ask them first. We're going to get the wisdom from the children first. All right. So who do we got here? We got Jake. We got Kylie. We got Cecilia. Ellis. Did I remember it? Yes? Yes. Yes. All right. Thank you for being brave and coming forward. So my question for all of them is, how would you finish the statement, God is? So what is God to you? Any of you have any idea, and there's no wrong answers? God is?
Love.
God is love. Beautiful, Kylie. God is love. Anybody else got an answer? Yeah, Ellis. God is?
I don't know.
God is, I don't know. God is a mystery. You are right. Who else? Jake, did you have an answer? All right, God is?
Everything.
Everything. God is everything. All right, Cecilia, I want to give you a chance if you'd like to answer. Do you want to answer? Okay, that's all right. All right, so I have a story. Maybe before we go to the story, should we hear what they have to say God is? Yep, God is good. God is love. God is joy. God is everything. God is divine. God is forgiving. God is everywhere. Wonderful. Compassion. Peace. Consciousness. Forgiveness and acceptance. Promise. Well, I missed something. Chocolate. Of course. Now, we could get into an argument about what God is, right? Somebody said God is love, and somebody else said God is joy, and we could say, wait a minute, it's got to be one or the other. How could God be all these things? So I have a story. I got a story for the kids and a story for you, the story of the elephant. So do you know what an elephant looks like? Of course, right? You've seen elephants before.
I've seen them at the zoo.
At the zoo, you've seen them, exactly. So here's the story about the elephant. There were 6 blind men, can't see, and they came upon an elephant. And the first one came upon the elephant and felt the elephant and was at the side of the elephant, so felt the side of the elephant. What do you think? If you could imagine being that person who can't see but feels the side of an elephant, what might you describe the elephant as being like? Scaly, rough, and hairy, and big, right? And that was what the blind man saw. The blind man, in his mind, saw, I know what an elephant is. An elephant is like a big wall, right? A big wall, it won't move. Can you see that? But there was another blind man, and he came upon the elephant's leg. Now, what do you think he thought the elephant might be like? Yeah, Jake. A tree, exactly what he thought. He felt that elephant's leg, and he said, I know an elephant is like a tree trunk. It's not like a wall, it's like a tree trunk. And then the third blind man was at the tail and felt the tail of the elephant. Now, what do you think he thought an elephant was like? Okay, let's see. I haven't heard from Kylie.
A log.
A log. You think the tail might have been like a log? Well, he actually thought the tail was like a rope. Did you ever hold on to a rope?
I've
Yeah, you've held one before. Well, that's what he thought the elephant's tail was like a rope. But on the other side, in the front of the elephant, the other blind man was feeling the trunk of the elephant. What do you think he thought the elephant was like? You got an answer to this one, Cecilia? I see it, Jake.
Like, some kind of like snake.
Exactly. He felt that trunk and he thought, this elephant is like a snake. You guys are all wrong. It's not a wall. It's not a tree trunk. It's not a rope. It's like a snake. And then there was one more blind man. He was over by the tusk. Did you ever see an elephant's tusk? Right? It's long and smooth and sharp at the end. What do you think he might have thought an elephant was like?
Actually have two.
Yeah, they probably do. I don't really know that. But let's say he was touching one of those two. What do you think he thought an elephant was like then? A rock, because it was hard, right? He actually thought it was like a sword. He says, no, you're all wrong. I'm feeling, and an elephant is long and soft and spiky at the end. It's like a sword. And each one argued about what an elephant was like. Who was right? Everybody. That's right, Cecilia. Everybody was right. How about out here? And all of your answers about God. Who's right? Everybody. That's right. That's right. Thank you for coming up and sharing with me. You guys were all so very brave to come up and answer my questions. And you can go back to your families now. Thank you. Everybody's right. Everybody's right. You know, we get into such arguments with one another about whose idea of God is the right idea. And when we do that, what happens is we end up arguing, dividing, going to war with one another, all over our ideas of what is. So today I'd like to share with you what is Unity's idea of what God is. Unity teaches that God is both transcendent and immanent. What does that mean? Well, the idea that God is transcendent means that God is greater than any one of us. That there is this all that is. Some people said God is everything. God is this all that is greater than you or I individually can be. Transcendent. In Unity's perspective of God, then, God as transcendent, more than you, more than I, all that is. I love the idea of God as divine mind, for example. It's one of the ways that Unity describes God. God is divine mind. And in that divine mind consciousness that we call God is every idea that we could ever imagine, and then some, because it's infinity itself, right? And that you and I are individual minds within the consciousness of this divine mind. And that within that divine mind consciousness of all possibility, there is a perfect divine idea for each and every one of us. Now think about this for a minute. Here, in this all that is, in this Alpha and Omega, in this awareness, is the perfect idea of Luann. And the perfect idea of Tom. And the perfect idea of Michael. And the perfect idea of Barb, right? Everybody is a perfect idea in this divine mind consciousness, and we are one with that divine mind consciousness through the consciousness of our mind. Transcendent, but then also immanent within us. Transcendent, and then within us, immanent. Growing up, in the religion of my childhood, I was taught about God, as I'm sure all of you were. And mostly what I heard was God was transcendent. God was this being out there. And as a being out there, what I heard as a child was that God was up there with his list. Kind of like Santa Claus. Is she being naughty or nice? Right? And if being naughty, there's a check there, and guess what? Now you may not get your prayers answered. You may not end up in the right place later, right? If you're nice, oh great. Maybe Shirley deserves her prayers answered this week because look, I've checked her as nice. Right? This idea, that was my understanding of the idea. How many of you had a similar understanding, right? Yes. Unity teaches that God does not pick and choose. God doesn't say, Janet, this week you've been good, you get what you need. Phil, this week you've been bad, you don't. Doesn't work that way. Unity does not teach that God works that way. God is principle. God is law. Two other ideas that unity holds about God. Well, what does that mean? That means that standing under all of this life are certain principles and laws that are playing out, not capriciously, as Eric Butterworth would say, but the same for each and every one of us. God doesn't pick and choose. The law is there and available for all of us to become aware of and to use within our lives. And in that way, God is not personal. But we can have a personal experience of God. So God is principle. God is law. God is divine mind. God is, some of you said, and the children said, is love, right? Scripture tells us that. God is love. Now, not the emotion of love that we can experience that comes and goes, because God is absolute. And as absolute, that means without beginning and without ending. As absolute, that means unchanging. So God is that eternal, ever-present, always available power of love here for us. We live in this relative realm. What unity would describe as a realm where we are in bodies, where changes occur, where 1 year can turn into another year. You know, in the eternality of God, that is a silly idea, I'm sure. But here in this relative realm where things come and things go and things change and we have bodies, we can experience the power and presence that is God through the activity of our life. So while some of these ideas of God are high, and you think, how will I ever know that? What we're taught in unity is that, of course, we can know that through the activity of living our life, through our experience of touching the elephant. We can know something about the elephant. Through our experience of touching the divine, we can know something about the divine. Our challenge is to allow the whole experience to be a mystery and not think we have to define it, because it's in the defining of it that we decide my definition is right, your definition is wrong. And it creates separation, which is the exact opposite, if you will, of what the divine is. Our challenge in unity is not to try to escape out of this temporal realm in order to experience God. It's not about, oh, if I could just get to the absolute realm, I'd be fine, which sounds an awful lot about the way I understood heaven at one point in my life. It's not about, I need to escape from these struggles and these situations, so, God, take me away. It's to recognize and realize that here in this body, in this temporal realm, I can experience that divine power and presence uniquely and individually as me. I might be the elephant's toenail for all I know. But can I discover who I am as that divine being, one with God? And oneness doesn't mean sameness. Oneness means that we recognize the demonstration of God in all its many faces. in all its many forms and celebrate it all and not say it all has to be the same. So here in Unity, what we encourage you to know is that, number one, you can know God. God is the only power and the only presence in my life and in the universe. Do you know that? God is the only power and the only presence in my life and in the universe. Will you say that with me? God is the only power and the only presence in my life and in the universe. First principle of unity. And that we can know that power and that presence through the activity of our lives as we honor each and every one as that unique individual expression of the divine that they are. And hallelujah, there is an abundance of opportunity to practice just that. So I want to share with you one way that we have the opportunity to do that very thing here at Unity Spiritual Center. A couple of months ago, there was a suggestion that came into our suggestion box that the board looked at that asked whether or not we as a spiritual community could begin to allow people to identify their preferred pronoun. Now, you may be sitting here going, what? So I have help for that. Because we're not the only spiritual community looking at this. I have a short little video from a Jewish community that is looking at this very thing and what does it mean, and they can explain it in a much better way than I. So I'm going to have Michelle turn that video on.
Hey everyone! Today we're going to be talking about pronouns. Pronouns? What are those? Well, pronouns are the words that we use to describe someone in the third person. Why do I have to care about pronouns? I can just look at someone and know what pronouns they use. Well, actually, you shouldn't assume someone's pronouns or gender. Someone that presents more femininely, such as by wearing makeup or a dress, might actually use he, him pronouns. Some people don't use he, him, or she, her pronouns and instead use they, them pronouns. Some people use a mix of pronouns. Wait, they, them? I thought that's only used for talking about a lot of people at once. That's not actually quite true. William Shakespeare actually used it in some of his plays. But I'm a man and I use he, him pronouns because that's what I've always used. A lot of cisgendered people, which are people who identify with the gender they were given at birth, don't really question their pronouns or gender. Questioning gender can be scary. Remember, in Judaism, we're created b'tselem Elohim, in God's image, and I know that we use that text a lot, but in this case, it's really true. If you use your pronouns in a room full of strangers, then I feel a bit safer using my pronouns. Okay, so what pronouns do you use? Thank you so much for asking. I use they, them, and sometimes she, her pronouns. Really? I never would have known that if I hadn't asked. Let's practice using they, them pronouns. We'll use the name Elias as an example. Okay. Elias went to the store. They got the ingredients to make a challah. Great. Elias got the eggs and the flour and the yeast, and then he went to the cash register. Oh, darn it! I messed up. This is hard. I don't want to do this anymore. No, it's okay. Messing up is completely natural. It can be a little bit difficult for people to make the switch. Why don't we try practicing the apology? Okay. I'm so sorry I used the wrong pronouns. Please forgive me. I'll do anything, please. Whoa, whoa, whoa. I understand where you're coming from, but it's really not that big of a deal if it wasn't done with the intention of trying to make the other person feel bad. Try it again, but this time keep it casual. Okay. I'm sorry I used your wrong pronouns. Thank you. Another word that we use is misgendering. I'm sorry I misgendered you. There you go. Also, look what I've got. Whoa! How'd you do that? I have my ways. Want to break bread together? I'd like that. Thank you so much for helping to educate me. And now, you have the ability to help educate others. Introduce yourself using your name and pronouns, and be comfortable asking for other people's pronouns. I will.
So we honor the divine. Each of us made in God's image and likeness. Remember, male and female, He created them, and we have an opportunity to practice. And so starting today, for anyone who would like, you can request from the concierge desk a sticker that you could put on your name tag that tells your preferred pronoun. Mine being she, her. Ellie's going to share hers, his, theirs. You get to figure that one out. When she comes up, she'll tell you. He'll tell you. They'll tell you. See how confusing this can be? But this is how we honor one another. This is how we honor one another. Not arguing about who's right or who's wrong, but saying, I recognize that the divine is expressing uniquely and individually as you. And I'm willing to practice that. How many of you are willing to practice this week? Right? Okay. So here is our spiritual practice for the week. By the way, I will tell you that one of the groups that has been meeting here for 2.5 years met this morning, practicing inclusivity. And I shared with them that part of the reason that we are able to step out as a spiritual community in some of these ways that is stretching us, pushing us, right, is because we have been practicing inclusivity as a community. And the energy that is behind that is what we want to be about. And so if you're finding your buttons pushing this morning because of this conversation, I want to invite you personally to come to practicing inclusivity. We meet once a month, the first Sunday of the month, 10:15 to 10:45, so you could go to either service. All right, so here's our practice for the week. This week, pay attention to the evidence of God in your world. Where do you see God is present? Where do you see the beauty that is God? Where do you see the intelligence that is God? Where do you see the love that is God? Where do you see the peace and the compassion that is God? Where do you see God in this world? And then each day before you go to sleep, pause and think about it. Allow your mind to recall the many ways that God showed up in this day, in your life. Who's with me? Yes, yeah. And then I was thinking maybe next week I might give a prize, for the person that found God in the most unique way ever, right? So come back next week with your experience and see what the prize is. I don't even know, so it'll be good. God bless.